Picture this: a dimly lit workshop deep in the heart of a medieval city, where the air hums with the sound of hammers shaping gold and chisels carving secrets into stone. Behind these unassuming walls, a brotherhood of master craftsmen wielded more power than kings, their hands crafting not just treasures, but an empire of hidden wealth. They called themselves the Guild of the Silent Hands, and their fortune was whispered to be greater than the royal treasury itself. Yet when the last of their leaders drew their final breath, the location of their hoard vanished with them. Centuries later, their ledgers speak in riddles, their vaults lie eerily empty, and the truth is buried beneath layers of deception. What did these artisans know that made them so powerful? Where did their gold truly go? And why were they willing to kill to keep it hidden? Stick with us as we peel back the layers of history to uncover the truth behind the guild that mastered more than just metal. They mastered the art of vanishing a fortune. By the end of this journey, you'll question everything you thought you knew about medieval craftsmen, and the clues we reveal might just lead you to solve the mystery yourself. Now, let's step back in time to where it all began: the rise of the craftmasters. What started as a small collective of skilled artisans quickly transformed into something far more powerful. These weren't just ordinary craftsmen. They were visionaries, turning simple workshops into hubs of influence that would shape the destiny of their kingdom. At first, their work was modest: forging tools, crafting jewelry, and carving wood. But their reputation for unmatched quality spread like wildfire. Kings and nobles sought their creations, paying handsomely for pieces that symbolized power and prestige. With each commission, their wealth grew, but so did something far more valuable: their connections. Soon, the guild's leaders realized that gold wasn't the only currency that mattered. Knowledge was power, and they held the keys to trade routes, royal favor, and even the secrets of metallurgy that others couldn't replicate. They began to broker deals, not just for their crafts, but for entire shipments of goods. Tax exemptions, land grants, and political favors followed. Before long, they weren't just serving the elite, they were sitting among them, whispering in the ears of those who ruled. But their most cunning move, controlling the flow of gold itself. By monopolizing the finest craftsmanship, they dictated prices. By securing exclusive contracts, they ensured no rival could rise to challenge them. And by embedding themselves in the financial systems of the kingdom, they became untouchable. Yet, with such power came danger. The guild's ascent wasn't just a story of skill, it was a masterclass in strategy, ambition, and some say ruthlessness. How far would they go to protect their empire? That's a question we'll explore next as we uncover the secret oaths that bound them together and the price of betrayal. But power like this couldn't be left unguarded. The guild's leaders knew their empire would crumble if even a single secret slipped into the wrong hands. So they devised a system of loyalty so unbreakable, it bordered on legend: the secret oath. Picture this: a dimly lit chamber deep beneath the guild hall, where new members knelt before a circle of masked masters. The air was thick with the scent of burning herbs, and the only light came from flickering candles casting eerie shadows. Here, initiates swore an oath not just to the guild but to each other, a vow sealed in blood and whispered promises. The exact words of the oath were never recorded, but fragments of medieval texts hint at its severity. Betrayal wasn't just met with exile or death. Whispers spoke of curses, supernatural punishments that would follow a traitor beyond the grave. Some accounts claim deserters were found dead in their homes, their bodies untouched, yet their faces frozen in terror. Others tell of entire bloodlines mysteriously crumbling into ruin after a single act of defiance. But the oath wasn't just about fear, it was a web of mutual protection. Members knew their brothers would shield them as fiercely as they'd punish betrayal. This unshakable trust allowed the guild to operate in plain sight yet remain invisible. A merchant might haggle over prices by day, never knowing the man across the table was passing coded messages between guild members. A blacksmith's hammer strikes could mask the sound of a hidden vault being opened, and here's the chilling part. Even kings who suspected the guild's influence couldn't crack its secrecy. Captured members chose torture over confession, their loyalty reinforced by something deeper than gold, the unshakable belief that the oath's vengeance would outlive them. This wasn't just a pact, it was the invisible chain that held an empire together. And as we'll soon see, when that chain was tested, the consequences echoed through history. Now, let's peel back another layer of this mystery, the guild's hidden ledgers. For centuries, their financial secrets were locked away in coded records, written in a language only the initiated could understand. But modern historians, armed with patience and cutting-edge technology, have finally begun to crack the cipher. Imagine stumbling upon a chest of leather-bound books, their pages filled not with ordinary numbers, but with strange symbols, cryptic annotations, and what looked like random scratches. At first glance, they seemed like mundane account books, lists of supplies, payments, and trades. But the deeper researchers looked, the clearer it became. These weren't just records. They were a map to the guild's invisible empire. The breakthrough came when a historian noticed recurring patterns, symbols that matched known guild marks on surviving artifacts. Cross-referencing these with tax records and royal decrees revealed something astonishing. The ledgers didn't just track honest business. They documented bribes to officials, payments to spies, and even loans to the crown itself, all disguised as ordinary transactions. A shipment of iron bars might secretly represent a bribe to a port inspector. A payment for wine could actually be hush money, but the most chilling discovery. Hidden columns written in vanishing ink or tucked between lines, listing accounts no outsider was meant to see. Some entries pointed to vast sums moved between shadowy locations, while others hinted at treasures stored in unnamed vaults. One ledger even contained a single, ominous line: the seventh master's share never to be claimed. What's remarkable isn't just what the ledgers reveal, but how they reveal it. The guild didn't just hide their wealth, they flaunted it in plain sight, trusting their code to keep the truth safe, and for hundreds of years it worked. Until now, with every decoded page, we're one step closer to unraveling the guild's greatest secret, where their fortune truly lies. And as we'll see next, some of their treasures weren't just hidden in ledgers, but in plain sight, disguised as something far more ordinary. But the guild's secrets weren't just buried in ink and parchment. Some of their boldest schemes played out in the open, like the infamous theft of the royal crown's most prized treasure. Picture this: a golden reliquary encrusted with jewels and said to hold a sacred relic crafted by the guild's finest hands. It vanished overnight from the king's chapel, leaving no broken locks or forced doors, just an empty pedestal and a trail of whispers. The official story blamed foreign thieves, but the clues told a different tale. First, the timing. The theft happened the same week the guild's seventh master died suddenly, a death shrouded in rumors of poison. Then there were the guards' accounts. None saw intruders, but several recalled a guild artisan visiting the chapel days earlier to inspect the reliquary's mounting. Odd, since the guild hadn't been commissioned for repairs, but the most damning evidence lay in the craftsmanship itself. Experts later noted the reliquary's base had hidden hinges, a signature of guild metalwork. And a charcoal sketch found in a guild apprentice's journal matched the stolen piece exactly down to a tiny flaw in the gem setting, a detail only its maker would know. Theories abound. Was it a revenge plot by the guild after the king defaulted on a massive loan, a way to reclaim a treasure they felt was rightfully theirs? Or something darker, like silencing the reliquary's rumored power to expose hidden gold? Whatever the motive, one thing's clear: the guild didn't just steal the relic. They made sure everyone knew it was gone, yet no one could prove they took it. And here's the twist: decades later, a nearly identical reliquary surfaced in a noble's private collection. The gems were different, but the craftsmanship unmistakably the guild's. Was it the same piece disguised, a taunting replica, or proof the theft was never about wealth but sending a message. As we'll soon see, the Guild's genius wasn't just in hiding treasure, but in making the world question if it was ever lost at all. Now, let's turn our attention to a tale of betrayal that still sends chills down the spines of treasure hunters today. The fate of the Guild's most skilled goldsmith. This master craftsman, whose name has been lost to history, was entrusted with melting down and redistributing the Guild's gold. But whispers began circulating that he'd been skimming from the molten metal, funneling tiny amounts into his own hidden stash. At first, it seemed impossible. The Guild's accounting was meticulous, and their oaths forbade theft. But then, the discrepancies started adding up. The breaking point came when a junior apprentice noticed something odd about the gold ingots being shipped to a noble client. The weight was perfect, but the color just slightly off. When confronted, the goldsmith laughed it off, blaming poor furnace temperatures. But that night, the Guild's enforcers paid a visit to his workshop. What they found there defied explanation. The goldsmith was gone. No struggle, no farewell note, just his half-finished work on the bench and a series of strange symbols carved into the walls. Some resembled guild makers' marks, but twisted as if mirrored or inverted. Others matched no known cipher. Most unsettling of all, the floor was dusted with a fine layer of gold powder, as if something or someone had been dissolved. Rumors exploded. Had the goldsmith fled with his ill-gotten gains? Had the Guild made an example of him? Or had something more supernatural occurred, as hinted by those eerie markings? The truth may lie in a single clue. Months later, a merchant in a distant city sold a necklace with a peculiar flaw in its clasp, a flaw identical to the goldsmith's signature error. When questioned, the merchant claimed it came from a traveler who paid in raw gold dust. The Guild never spoke of the incident again, but to this day, treasure hunters swear that if you decode those workshop markings just right, they'll lead you to a cache of gold and whatever became of the man who dared betray the craft masters. And this vanishing act was just the beginning, because next we're descending into the Guild's most guarded secret, the catacomb vaults, where their wealth wasn't just hidden, it was buried alive. But the mystery deepens beneath our feet. Hidden below the very streets where the craftmasters walked lay their most closely guarded secret, the catacomb vaults. These weren't just ordinary storerooms. They were sprawling, maze-like chambers carved deep into the earth, accessible only through disguised entrances in guild halls or forgotten alleyways. Legends spoke of chests overflowing with gold, gem-studded relics, and ledgers containing the Guild's darkest financial secrets. But when modern archaeologists finally uncovered these vaults after centuries of searching, they made a chilling discovery. The chambers were empty, not a single coin, not a scrap of parchment, just dust and the occasional rusted hinge where a chest might have once sat. Yet the real intrigue lies in what they did find. The walls bore scrape marks suggesting heavy objects had been dragged out in a hurry. Some corridors ended in collapsed tunnels, as if someone had deliberately sealed them off. And in one vault, explorers uncovered a single, cryptic message scratched into the stone, a date just days before the Great Fire that devastated the Guild's headquarters. Was this a record of the vaults being cleared, a warning, or perhaps a clue to where the treasure was moved? Some theorists believe the Guild anticipated their downfall and relocated their wealth to an even more secure location. Others argue the vaults were never meant to hold physical treasure at all, that their true purpose was far more sinister. One thing's certain, the emptiness of these chambers only fuels the legend. Because if the Guild's fortune isn't here, where did it go? The answer may lie in our next chapter, where we'll follow the trail of a sunken ship and the cargo it wasn't supposed to be carrying. But the mystery doesn't end with empty vaults. The trail of the Guild's fortune takes a dramatic turn beneath the waves, where a sunken merchant ship holds secrets of its own. This vessel, lost to the sea centuries ago, wasn't just carrying spices and silks. Its manifest listed ordinary trade goods, but when divers finally reached its wreckage, they found something far more puzzling. The ship's cargo didn't match its records. Instead of bolts of cloth and barrels of salt, explorers uncovered crates lined with lead, a metal often used to shield valuable or dangerous items. Some containers held strange, unmarked ingots, while others were filled with tools too finely crafted for ordinary sailors. Most intriguing of all, the ship's logs had been deliberately damaged, with key pages torn or burned beyond recognition. Historians pieced together a chilling possibility. This ship wasn't just off course, it was part of a carefully orchestrated operation. The Guild, known for its control over trade routes, may have used vessels like this to move wealth or contraband under the radar. Some speculate the lead-lined crates once held gold or silver, disguised as bulk cargo to avoid royal taxes. Others whisper of darker cargo, alchemical materials, or forbidden relics the Guild wanted hidden from prying eyes. The most compelling clue, the ship's final resting place. It sank near a remote stretch of coast far from any major port, yet close to a network of caves rumored to be Guild hideouts. Was this a delivery gone wrong, or a deliberate sinking to bury secrets forever? The answer may lie in our next chapter, where we'll uncover the fate of a young apprentice who vanished after stumbling upon a truth too dangerous to share. Now, let's turn our attention to a story shrouded in whispers, the tale of the forgotten apprentice. Among the Guild's many mysteries, few are as haunting as the sudden disappearance of a young craftsman named Elias. He was just 16 when he vanished, but the clues he left behind suggest he uncovered something the Guild never intended to be found. Elias had been an eager apprentice, known for his sharp mind and curiosity. His role was simple: assist the master craftsman with mundane tasks, from grinding pigments to organizing tools. But one evening, while cleaning the workshop, he stumbled upon a loose floorboard. Beneath it lay a hidden compartment, and inside, a ledger unlike any he'd seen before. The pages were filled with strange symbols and diagrams, blueprints for mechanisms that defied explanation. There were sketches of locks with no keyholes, chests with intricate false bottoms, and even a device resembling a primitive vault, its design far ahead of its time. Terrified yet fascinated, Elias began copying the diagrams into his personal journal, adding notes in the margins. His writings reveal a growing fear. He suspected these mechanisms weren't just for storing gold. Some designs hinted at traps, perhaps meant to protect the Guild's secrets at any cost. His final entry is the most chilling. Dated the night he disappeared, it reads, "Master Gerhardt knows I've seen them. Tonight I follow the silver thread. If I do not return, bury this with the old tools." The next morning, Elias was gone. His journal was found hidden in a rusted toolbox, just as he'd instructed. But the silver thread he mentioned, it's never been identified. Some believe it was a literal clue, a wire or marking leading to a hidden Guild vault. Others think it was code, a reference to a secret only initiates would understand. What makes this story so unsettling is the aftermath. The Guild never reported Elias missing. No search was made. It was as if he'd never existed. Yet decades later, when historians examined his journal, they realized something extraordinary. Several of the mechanisms he'd sketched matched descriptions from other Guild sites, including the empty catacomb vaults and the lead-lined crates on that sunken ship. Was Elias the first to uncover the Guild's true system of hiding wealth? And if so, did that knowledge cost him his life? The answers may lie deeper still, in the cryptic language of the Guild's blacksmiths, a code woven into the very tools they forged. But that's a secret for another time. Now, let's step into the forge and uncover the silent language of the Guild's blacksmiths. At first glance, their tools and markings appeared ordinary: chisels, hammers, and anvils bearing the usual wear of craftsmanship. But hidden in plain sight was a code, a system of symbols and deliberate imperfections that whispered the locations of hidden wealth. Take the blacksmith's hammer, for example. To an outsider, the notches along its handle might seem like accidental chips from years of use, but guild records reveal these were carefully carved, each groove representing a direction or distance. A single deep notch near the base could point north, while a cluster of shallow marks might indicate the number of paces to a concealed cache. Even the way a tool was left on the workbench held meaning. A chisel placed at an angle could signal that a nearby wall held a hollow compartment. Then there were the markings on finished metalwork. A guild-crafted lock might bear a floral pattern, its petals arranged in a specific count to denote the day a vault was last accessed. A seemingly decorative swirl on a chest's hinges could map the turns needed to open a hidden mechanism. Historians studying these objects noticed something eerie. Many matched the sketches in Elias's journal down to the tiniest detail. It's as if the apprentice had begun to crack the code before he vanished. But the most intriguing clue lies in the guild's ceremonial anvils. These massive blocks of iron were often inscribed with symbols dismissed as religious blessings or maker's marks. Yet when researchers superimposed these symbols onto maps of guild-controlled cities, they aligned with known sites of hidden chambers and a few uncharted ones. One anvil, recovered from a ruined guild hall in Flanders, bore a sequence of dots that matched the layout of tunnels beneath the building. Excavations there revealed empty niches in the walls, their dimensions perfect for storing gold bars. Why go to such lengths? Because the blacksmiths weren't just craftsmen, they were the guild's librarians, encoding secrets into objects too ordinary to attract suspicion. A king might confiscate a ledger, but who would interrogate a hammer? And this brings us to the lingering question: did Elias follow the silver thread straight into this coded world? His journal mentions a mark like a falling star on a tool he found, a symbol later identified as the guild's shorthand for a vault's trigger mechanism. Was he silenced for getting too close? The answer may lie in the guild's most guarded gatherings, their midnight meetings, where decisions about the fortune were made under the veil of darkness. But that's a shadow we'll explore next. Now, let's pull back the curtain on one of the guild's most guarded rituals, their midnight meetings. Under the glow of a full moon, the craftmasters would gather in secret, far from prying eyes, to decide the fate of their hidden fortune. These weren't just casual discussions, they were carefully orchestrated events, shrouded in layers of deception and danger. The location changed with each meeting, sometimes a secluded forest clearing, other times the cellar of an abandoned chapel. But one rule never wavered: no light except the moon. Members arrived in silence, their faces hidden beneath hoods, each carrying a token, a coin split in two, its jagged edge matching only one other in the room. Without the matching half, even the most trusted guildsman would be turned away. Whispers from surviving accounts describe how decisions were made. Gold was allocated to bribe officials, fund hidden projects, or vanish into new hiding places. But the most chilling detail: votes weren't spoken aloud. Instead, members dropped colored stones into a bronze urn, white for agreement, black for dissent. One chronicler noted that after a particularly contentious vote, 3 black stones appeared in the urn, and by dawn, 3 craftsmen had vanished without a trace. Of course, such secrecy attracted unwanted attention. Local lords sent spies, disguised as merchants or even beggars, hoping to uncover the guild's plans. The craftmasters had countermeasures. New attendees were tested, asked to inspect a faulty lock or identify a counterfeit coin. A wrong answer meant more than expulsion. One infiltrator's journal, discovered centuries later, described being led blindfolded into the woods only to wake miles away with a warning carved into his boot sole. Yet the greatest mystery isn't the meetings themselves, it's what followed. After each gathering, shipments would depart under false manifests, buildings acquired strange new architectural features, and certain officials suddenly reversed their policies. The guild's influence spread like invisible ink, only revealing itself under the right light. And here's where Elias's fate grows darker. His journal's final entry mentions a midnight meeting, one he wasn't invited to but planned to witness. He'd sketched a location, a millstone with a star-shaped crack. That same symbol was later found chalked onto a door in the guild's last standing hall. Was it a warning, a marker, or perhaps the very reason his trail goes cold after that night? This web of moonlight and shadows leads us to an even bigger player in the guild's story, the monarchy itself. Because when a king borrows gold, he doesn't just owe coins, he owes favors, and that debt would shape the fate of the craftmasters in ways no one could predict. But the guild's power didn't stop at secret meetings and hidden votes. Their influence reached the highest levels of authority, straight to the throne itself. The craftmasters didn't just amass wealth, they weaponized it, and nothing proves that more than the staggering debt they held over the crown. Picture this, a kingdom at war, its coffers drained by endless battles. Desperate for gold to pay soldiers, the king turned to the one group with bottomless reserves, the guild. The loan they offered wasn't just large, it was unimaginable. Enough to fund an army for years, but this wasn't charity. Every coin came with invisible strings attached. Surviving royal records show the terms. No interest, no strict repayment deadlines. On the surface, it looked generous. But buried in the fine print were clauses that gave the guild unprecedented power. They could demand payment in materials or services, a vague phrase that let them call in favors whenever they pleased. Even more telling, the king exempted the guild from all taxes in gratitude, a move that filled their vaults even faster. Then came the decrees. Suddenly, laws shifted in the guild's favor. Rival artisans faced new restrictions while guild-controlled trade routes flourished. When a nobleman accused them of hoarding gold, he was quietly stripped of his lands. Coincidence? Unlikely. A scribe's marginal note in the royal ledger says it all. His Majesty sighed deeply before sealing the order, but the boldest power play came during a grain shortage. The guild had stockpiled wheat, and when the king begged them to release it, they agreed, on one condition. A minor guild official, barely 30 years old, was appointed to the royal council. Overnight, the craftmasters had a direct voice in governance. The most chilling evidence, though, lies in what happened when a later king tried to break free. He raised taxes on the guild, calling their privilege unjust. Within months, 3 of his closest advisors resigned under mysterious circumstances. Then came the fires, warehouses of royal goods ablaze, each coincidentally insured by guild-affiliated merchants. The tax hike was quietly repealed. This wasn't just money changing hands. It was a slow, deliberate takeover, not with swords but with ledgers, and it raises a haunting question: who truly ruled the kingdom? The man who wore the crown, or the ones who held his debts? Which brings us to an even darker chapter, because when the guild's money built something, they made sure no one could tear it down. Hidden within the stones of their greatest construction project lay secrets meant to last forever or vanish without a trace. Now let's peel back another layer of the guild's cunning, this time hidden in plain sight. A crumbling manuscript tucked away in a monastery's archive turned out to be no ordinary sketch. It was the guild architect's original blueprint, and it held secrets modern historians nearly missed. At first glance, the drawings showed a typical guild hall: grand workshops, meeting chambers, and vaults. But when researchers held the parchment up to light, faint lines emerged, revealing spaces that shouldn't exist. These weren't design errors. They were deliberate voids, hidden compartments woven into the very bones of the building. Some were no larger than a loaf of bread, perfect for stashing ledgers or jewels. Others ran like veins through the walls, wide enough to slide a chest through. The most chilling, a network of tunnels beneath the foundation, accessible only by removing a specific floor tile in the master's private office. But here's where it gets ingenious. The guild didn't just hide these spaces, they engineered distractions. A visible safe in the treasurer's room, prominently bolted to the floor, drew attention away from the hollow column beside it, where guild records confirm they kept their most sensitive bribes. Even the building's symmetry was a trick. matching pillars on either side of the hall. Only one was solid, the other unscrewed at the base, revealing a vertical shaft leading to the cellar. Recent scans of surviving guild buildings confirm these blueprints weren't theoretical. In a hall in Bruges, restorers found a false ceiling above the Great Chamber, a narrow crawl space lined with slots that still held fragments of wax-sealed parchment. And in Ghent, workers repairing a collapsed wall uncovered a hollow keystone, its interior scorched. Had someone burned evidence there centuries ago? The architect's notes, decoded last year, boast about these features. He calls them the Silent Guardians, crediting an ancient Roman text for the idea. But one margin note chills more than the rest. The seventh compartment remains unwritten. Was this a failsafe known only to a chosen few, or a trap for thieves? After all, guild lore speaks of a treasurer who vanished mid-inspection, his body never found. This discovery changes everything. If even their buildings were designed to deceive, how much of their fortune might still be hidden not in vaults or catacombs, but in the walls we've walked past for centuries? Which brings us to the strangest clue of all, a guild master's last words whispered as the fire consumed their greatest hall. But the guild's secrets weren't just hidden in walls, some were woven into whispers and warnings. The tale of the seventh master is where history bleeds into legend. He took power during the guild's golden age, a brilliant metalsmith who could allegedly tell real gold from fool's gold by scent alone. Under his rule, their wealth grew beyond measure, yet his sudden death midway through a feast, clutching his throat, sent shockwaves through the brotherhood. The official record claims poison, but guild members spoke of darker signs. The master's personal ledger, opened the next morning, showed his final entry, a single line of symbols no one could decipher, followed by a crude sketch of a key. Within weeks, 3 senior craftsmen who'd handled his estate died in bizarre accidents: a furnace explosion, a misplaced chisel that pierced a lung, a fall from a scaffold that had stood solid for decades. That's when the rumors began. They called it the Curse of the Seventh, a hex placed on anyone who sought the master's private hoard. Even the king's tax collectors backed off after one investigator woke to find his ledger filled with the same cryptic symbols and his prized stallion dead in its stable. Modern historians dismiss it as superstition, but the pattern is eerie. In the 300 years since, at least 9 treasure hunters targeting the seventh master's vault met untimely ends. The most recent, a wealthy collector in the 19th century who boasted he'd cracked the ledger's code. His excavation team fled when their tunnel collapsed on a clear day, with no seismic activity burying him with his maps. The guild's own archives fuel the mystery. A journeyman's diary from that era recounts a drunken confession by the seventh master's valet. He didn't hide it in earth or stone, but in the one place no thief would dare reach. Was that a clue or a red herring? Either way, the curse's legacy endures. Even today, metal detectors near known guild sites sometimes pick up interference, and locals swear they hear hammer strikes from empty workshops at midnight. Perhaps the most chilling detail, the seventh master's tomb lies empty. His body vanished the night before burial, and the guild's records state only this: the key remains with its maker. Was it a metaphor, a literal key to his fortune, or a final warning to those who'd follow? One thing's certain, the guild's genius wasn't just in hiding wealth, but in ensuring some secret stayed buried. And that brings us to another voice from the past, a monk who claimed to have heard a dying guildsman's last words. Now, let's turn our attention to a different kind of clue, one not written in ledgers or carved into stone, but whispered in the final moments of a dying man. A monk's diary, hidden for centuries in the archives of a remote monastery, tells the story of a guild member who sought absolution on his deathbed. According to the monk's careful notes, the craftsman was feverish, his words slurred, but his confession was clear enough to send chills down the spine of anyone who heard it. He spoke of a vault, not underground, not behind a hidden door, but where the sky drinks the earth, The monk, puzzled, pressed for more, but the guildsman only laughed weakly and said, "The masters built their fortune on two pillars, craft and cunning. One is visible, the other waits." Then, with his last breath, he muttered a string of numbers 3, 7, 9 before falling silent forever. Historians have debated the meaning of those words for decades. Some believe where the sky drinks the earth refers to a waterfall, a place where water and stone meet, perhaps a hidden chamber behind a cascade near the guild's old headquarters. Others argue it's a metaphor for a forge, where fire, the sky, consumes coal, the earth, suggesting the fortune was melted down and recast into ordinary objects. As for the numbers, they match no known guild ledger page, no date in their records, but here's where it gets interesting. A 19th century architect restoring a guild chapel found those same digits etched into the base of a crumbling statue 3, 7, 9 alongside a faded symbol resembling a keyhole. When he measured the chapel's dimensions, the numbers corresponded to specific architectural features. 3 steps down, 7 paces east, 9 stones from the corner. Did he find anything? The architect's journal ends abruptly after that entry with a single sentence. "The earth here is too hungry." Whether he abandoned the search or something stopped him, we'll never know. But the monk's diary leaves us with one final riddle. On its last page, in different ink, he added a personal note: "The guilty flee where none pursue." Was it a warning, a clue, or just the musings of a man haunted by a dying man's words? One thing's certain: the guild's secrets were never meant to be found easily. And as we'll soon see, even those who claimed to know the truth often paid a steep price. But let's shift our gaze from cryptic riddles to the shadows of power, where wealth and influence intertwine. Behind the guild's rise, whispers point to a silent partner, a noble family whose name once commanded respect, then vanished from history as abruptly as the guild's fortune. The theory goes like this: the craftmasters needed more than skill to dominate trade. They needed protection, political leverage, and a steady flow of gold. Enter the Dormonts, a wealthy dynasty with ties to the royal court. Historians piecing together fragmented letters and tax records found curious gaps, years where the family's expenses far exceeded their recorded income. Yet their coffers never seemed to empty. Then there's the guild's sudden expansion in the 1300s. Overnight, their workshops multiplied, their craftsmen received rare materials from distant lands, and their leaders began wearing rings stamped with a peculiar crest, a crescent moon cradling an anvil. The same symbol appears on a Dormont wedding chalice, now gathering dust in a museum. Coincidence? Unlikely. But why would nobles risk their reputation backing artisans? The answer lies in the guild's most valuable commodity: discretion. They didn't just craft objects, they forged alliances, moved gold untaxed, and some suspect eliminated rivals with accidents too precise to be chance. The Dormonts got a cut of every shadowy deal, their name kept clean while the guild did the dirty work. Then, in 1384, disaster struck. The Dormont patriarch was found dead in his bed, a half-drunk goblet of wine beside him. Within months, the family's estates were seized by the crown, their names scrubbed from official records. The official reason: treason. But a surviving servant's diary tells a different story: a midnight argument with a hooded visitor bearing the guild's mark, followed by a hissed warning: silent partners stay silent. Was it a falling out among thieves, a royal cover-up, or did the guild, sensing exposure, cut ties the only way they knew how? The Dormont's fate mirrors the craftmaster's own decline, a reminder that in this game, even the powerful were pawns. And as we'll see next, their legacy wasn't just gold, but a blueprint for betrayal. Now, let's turn our attention to the flames that would rewrite history: the Great Fire of 1382. It began in the dead of night, a blaze so fierce it devoured the guild's main hall in hours. Witnesses described flames leaping higher than the bell towers, painting the sky crimson. By dawn, the heart of the craftmaster's empire was reduced to smoldering rubble. But here's the mystery: why did the fire spread so quickly? The guild's hall was built of stone, with iron doors and thick walls designed to withstand siege engines. Yet records show the fire bypassed these defenses as if guided. Some claim it started in the archives, where ledgers detailing their secret transactions were kept. Others whisper of strange barrels stacked near the cellars, their contents unmarked. The timing raises eyebrows too. The fire struck just weeks after the Dormont family's downfall, as if someone was tying up loose ends. A surviving guild apprentice later wrote of a frantic meeting the night before, where masters argued over cleansing the records. When the king's investigators arrived, they found no bodies, just ash and a single, unburnt chest stamped with that familiar crescent moon and anvil. Inside, empty. Was it arson, a royal plot to seize what remained of the guild's wealth? Or did the craftmasters themselves set the fire, ensuring their secrets and their fortune would vanish with them? One thing's certain: the flames didn't just destroy a building, they erased a trail. And as we'll soon discover, what was lost in that fire may hold the key to the guild's greatest secret. Now, let's follow the trail of a man who carried the guild's secrets into exile, only to leave behind a clue that would haunt treasure hunters for centuries. His name was Elias Voss, a master cartographer banished from the guild under mysterious circumstances. Some say he stole a portion of their wealth. Others claim he betrayed their trust by revealing secrets to a rival faction. Whatever the truth, Elias vanished into the wilderness, but not before crafting something extraordinary. Years after his disappearance, a tattered prayer book surfaced in a monastery far from the guild's reach. Inside, hidden beneath the lining, was a map unlike any other. Drawn in Elias's precise hand, it showed a network of tunnels beneath the old guild hall, marked with symbols only a craftmaster would recognize. At its center lay an X, labeled not with words, but with the guild's crescent moon and anvil, the same emblem found on that unburnt chest after the fire. What makes this map so compelling? First, its materials. The ink was mixed with gold dust, a guild signature. Second, the details. It included chambers not listed in any official record, some hidden behind false walls or accessible only through mechanisms only a master craftsman could design. But here's the twist: the map was incomplete. Key sections were either faded or deliberately obscured, as if Elias wanted the treasure found, but only by someone worthy. Monks who studied the map reported strange occurrences: flickering lights near the book at night, whispers in empty corridors. Some believed Elias's spirit guarded it, ensuring it wouldn't fall into the wrong hands. Others thought the guild's enemies had tampered with it, leaving false trails to mislead seekers. Centuries later, modern scans revealed something even more intriguing: tiny pinpricks in the parchment, invisible to the naked eye. When connected, they formed a second, more cryptic set of directions. Was this Elias's final act of defiance, a way to outsmart anyone who might force the secret from him? Or did the guild itself plant this puzzle, ensuring their fortune would remain hidden until the right moment? One thing's certain: the map is real, and somewhere beneath the ruins of that fire-scarred guild hall, the truth still waits. But as we'll see next, not all who sought it returned to tell the tale. But the guild's secrets didn't end with hidden maps or underground vaults. There's another layer to their cunning, one that reshaped entire economies. Among the most shocking discoveries linked to the craftmasters was their alleged involvement in counterfeiting. Historians now believe the guild didn't just hoard wealth, they manipulated it, flooding the realm with expertly forged coins to undermine their rivals. These weren't crude fakes. The counterfeit coins bore the guild's signature precision, matching the weight, shine, and even the minute imperfections of genuine currency. Only the most skilled silversmiths could spot the differences, like slight variations in the monarch's portrait or a missing serif in the lettering. The goal: to destabilize competing merchant networks by eroding trust in their coinage, leaving the guild's own trade alliances as the only reliable option. and the scheme might have stayed hidden forever if not for a handful of these coins turning up in modern archaeological digs. One was found lodged in the floorboards of a medieval tavern, another buried with a merchant who likely never realized he'd been paid in false silver. The most damning evidence came from a melted batch discovered in a hidden workshop cellar, discarded rejects perhaps from the guild's own minting operation. What's chilling is how far-reaching the deception may have been. Records suggest entire towns unknowingly traded these coins for years, their economies quietly poisoned by the guild's handiwork. Some scholars argue this was more than greed. It was a calculated strike against anyone who threatened their monopoly. Yet the craftmasters left one clue behind. A few counterfeit coins bear a tiny, deliberate flaw, a crescent moon stamped near the edge as if marking their work with pride. Was it a signature, a way to track their circulation? Or a silent warning to those who knew where to look? The truth, much like these coins, still surfaces in fragments, and as we'll soon see, the guild's financial games didn't stop at counterfeiting, they extended all the way to the throne itself. But the guild's financial schemes weren't the only secrets they left behind. As their power waned, the final act of their legacy came from the last master himself, a will so controversial it ignited treasure hunts for centuries. The document surfaced decades after the guild's decline, discovered hidden inside a hollowed-out prayer book in a monastery archive. Its contents were explosive. The last master claimed to have divided the guild's fortune among unnamed heirs, scattering clues to its location in cryptic verses and symbols. But here's the twist: no names were listed. Instead, the will spoke of those who prove worthy and seekers who decipher the craft. Historians still debate whether this was a genuine inheritance plan or an elaborate ruse. Some believe the master intended to protect the wealth by ensuring only those with guild knowledge could reclaim it. Others argue it was a final act of control, a way to pit rivals against each other in a futile search. The will's language is deliberately poetic, filled with references to the hammer's echo and the loom's unfinished thread. One passage mentions the seventh pillar where the moon drowns, sparking expeditions to every guild hall with 7 columns. Another hints at wealth buried beneath the shadow of the unbroken crown, leading treasure hunters to scour old royal sites. Over the years, dozens have claimed to crack the code. In the 1600s, a nobleman drained a castle moat searching for the drowned moon. In the 1800s, an archaeologist tore up the floors of a guild workshop, convinced the unbroken crown referred to a hidden vault. Neither found a single coin, yet the allure persists. Modern researchers using spectral imaging recently uncovered faint sketches in the will's margins, possibly a map or blueprint. But like everything tied to the guild, it's fragmentary. Was the fortune ever real, or was the last master's will the craftmaster's final masterpiece, a deception so perfect it still captivates us today? And as we'll see next, this wasn't the only ghost the guild left behind. Their influence reached even the highest seats of power, binding kings to their secrets. But the mystery doesn't end with dusty parchments and old rumors. Fast forward to today, where a new generation of treasure hunters has taken up the chase, armed with tools the craftmasters could never have imagined. Take Dr. Elena Voss, a historian who spent the last decade decoding the guild's symbols using artificial intelligence. Her team feeds centuries of guild records into machine learning algorithms, searching for patterns in their cryptic language. Early results suggest the unbroken crown might not be a literal object but a code for a specific type of vault construction. Then there's Marcus Renly, an amateur sleuth who turned his basement into a command center. Using ground-penetrating radar, he scanned every known guild site in Europe, convinced the fortune was moved underground. His most promising lead, anomalies beneath a ruined chapel in Belgium, though local laws have stalled his excavation. But not all searches rely on high-tech gear. The infamous Cipher Sisters, a trio of retired librarians, swear by old-fashioned puzzle solving. They've recreated the guild's cipher wheels from historical descriptions, manually testing combinations to crack the will's verses. Last year, they claimed a breakthrough linking the hammer's echo to a long-forgotten bell tower in Prague. The most daring effort belongs to tech millionaire Adrian Cole, who funded a deep-sea dive after cross-referencing guild trade routes with shipwreck databases. His theory, the drowned moon clue, points to a sunken guild vessel carrying part of the hoard. So far, his team has found 3 wrecks, none with treasure, but all packed with guild-marked cargo. Yet for every high-profile hunt, there are dozens of quiet obsessives. Online forums buzz with theories about thermal imaging revealing hidden chambers or spectral analysis detecting gold particles in old mortar. Some even claim the guild left behind a treasured genome, a sequence of symbols that, when pieced together, reveals the fortune's location, what drives them. Partly the thrill, partly the puzzle, but perhaps it's also the guild's genius for secrecy. After all, what better way to protect a fortune than to make the search itself irresistible? And as we'll see next, some believe the guild never truly disbanded, that their descendants still guard the secrets today. Now, let's turn to one of the most intriguing theories of all, the idea that the guild never really vanished. Some believe they simply went underground, their descendants still operating in the shadows, guarding the fortune to this day. Consider the accounts of modern craftsmen who have reported strange encounters. A stonemason in France claims he was approached by a mysterious patron who demanded he use an ancient guild technique for a restoration project, then vanished without payment. A jeweler in Vienna swears a client knew details about guild markings that weren't documented anywhere outside their secret ledgers. Coincidence or proof the knowledge survived? Then there's the curious case of the silent benefactors. Several historians researching the guild have received anonymous donations, always in gold coins, always with a single guild symbol stamped discreetly on the edge. The funds arrive with no return address, just a note quoting the guild's original oath. But the most compelling evidence might lie in the architecture itself. Recent infrared scans of guild-built structures reveal hidden passages too precise to be accidental, some leading to chambers that don't appear on any blueprint. One such room, discovered behind a cathedral wall in Germany, contained nothing but a fresh candle, a guild seal, and a ledger updated as recently as 1987. Of course, skeptics argue these are just elaborate hoaxes or wishful thinking. They point out that no definitive proof ties modern incidents to the medieval guild. Yet the pattern persists, always just out of reach, always hinting at something deeper. So what's the truth? Did the craftmasters fade into history, or did they become ghosts of their former selves, still pulling strings, still protecting their legacy? One thing's certain, if the guild's descendants are out there, they've mastered their ancestors' greatest skill, staying unseen. And speaking of unseen, our next chapter takes us to the most infamous safeguard of all the guild's legendary vault, engineered to defy any thief who dares to try their luck. Now, let's step into the shadows of the guild's most terrifying secret, the unbreakable vault. Legends speak of a chamber so well hidden, so meticulously guarded, that even the most skilled treasure hunters have met their doom trying to breach it. This wasn't just a locked door or a simple chest. This was a masterpiece of medieval engineering, designed to protect the guild's fortune at any cost. Whispers from old guild texts describe a vault buried deep beneath their grandest hall, accessible only through a series of twisting tunnels, but getting there was just the first challenge. The real danger lay in the mechanisms themselves. Some accounts mention pressure-sensitive floors that triggered hidden blades. Others tell of walls that slowly closed in, crushing anyone who hesitated too long. And then there were the puzzle's elaborate locks requiring not just keys, but knowledge of the guild's secret symbols and codes. The most chilling stories, though, come from those who tried and failed. In the early 1800s, a team of French archaeologists claimed to have found the vault's entrance. They documented their discovery in meticulous detail, right up until their final journal entry, which abruptly ended mid-sentence. Their equipment was later found neatly stacked outside the tunnel, as if they'd simply vanished into thin air. More recently, a tech-savvy treasure hunter used ground-penetrating radar to map the area beneath a ruined guild hall in Belgium. His scans revealed a hollow space matching the vault's description, but when he returned with excavation tools, the entire site had been filled in overnight with no record of any construction permits or workers. Skeptics dismiss these tales as exaggerations or bad luck, but the pattern is hard to ignore. Every few decades, someone claims to have cracked the vault's secrets. And every time, the story ends the same way, with silence. So what's really inside? Gold, artifacts, or something far more valuable like the guild's lost knowledge? One thing's clear: if the vault exists, it's earned its name, and as we'll see next, its legacy isn't just about treasure. It's about the lengths the guild would go to protect their power, even beyond the grave. But beyond the vault's deadly secrets lies something even more enduring: the guild's true legacy. While treasure hunters obsess over lost gold, the craftmasters left behind something far more valuable: innovations that reshaped the medieval world. Their influence wasn't just locked in vaults, it was woven into the very fabric of trade, art, and power. Take their craftsmanship. Guild members weren't just skilled laborers, they were pioneers. Their techniques for forging steel, weaving textiles, and even mixing pigments for stained glass were centuries ahead of their time. Some historians argue that the guild's secret methods, passed down through generations, laid the groundwork for the Renaissance's artistic explosion. A single guild-trained blacksmith could elevate an entire town's economy, and their intricate metalwork still baffles modern experts trying to replicate it without blueprints. Then there's their financial genius. Long before modern banks, the guild operated like a shadow economy. They invented early forms of credit, using encrypted ledgers to track debts across kingdoms. Their system of loans and investments gave them staggering influence, enough to fund wars or topple nobles who crossed them. Some economists trace the roots of modern banking to their clandestine transactions, though the guild's name was carefully scrubbed from official records. But perhaps their most surprising legacy: education. The guild didn't hoard knowledge forever, they selectively shared it. Apprentices who proved loyal were taught advanced mathematics, chemistry, and even rudimentary engineering. Many of Europe's first secular schools were founded by former guild members, spreading literacy beyond monasteries. That's why, even after the guild's decline, their symbols kept appearing in unexpected places, carved into university halls or hidden in the margins of early scientific manuscripts. So while the vault's treasure remains a mystery, the craftmasters' real fortune was their ideas. They didn't just hide gold, they built systems that outlasted empires. And as we'll see in our final chapter, that's what makes their story more than a medieval heist tale. It's a reminder that the most powerful legacies aren't always the ones you can hold in your hands. Now, as we bring this journey to a close, let's take a moment to reflect on the enigma that still captivates us centuries later. The craftmaster's fortune, whether gold, secrets, or something even more elusive, remains hidden, teasing treasure hunters and historians alike. Every decoded ledger, every unearthed clue only deepens the mystery. Was their wealth buried in those empty catacombs, sunk beneath the waves with that suspicious shipwreck? Or perhaps it was never gold at all, but something far more intangible, passed down through generations, sworn to silence. The beauty of this story lies in its unanswered questions. It invites you to piece together the puzzle. What do you think happened to the guild's fortune? Could it still be out there, waiting for the right person to crack its final code? Or was their greatest treasure always the knowledge they left behind, transforming the world in ways no vault ever could? If you've enjoyed unraveling this medieval mystery with us, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. We're always digging into history's hidden corners, and we'd love for you to join the hunt. Drop your theories in the comments below. Maybe you'll be the one to solve the Craftmaster's final riddle. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and remember, some secrets are meant to endure.